Welcome to the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tate. We have an incredible show for you this week. The main event is a young magician that blew me away at the Blackpool Magic Convention. I walked into the Ruskin when my good friend John Allen said, "You have to see this." He introduced me to a young man from Peru who then proceeded to turn my brain inside out. He does magic with clay. It seems to sculpt itself, take forms based on your thoughts, transform at the lightest touch. It's truly magical. This episode is a bit of a preview for something that will be coming out with Penguin down the road, but Johnny is someone whose magic you should really know. So I didn't want to sit on this any longer than I had to. I caught up with Johnny in the Penguin Magic Podcast studio, and now you get to join our conversation.
Johnny Clavo, thanks so much for joining me here on the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm so excited we were able to get you here to Columbus, Ohio to teach your wonderful plasticine magic.
Thank you so much, Eric. I'm actually really excited to be here.
Yeah.
This is my first time here in Columbus, and not my first time in Ohio.
Yeah.
I came here many years ago, but it was something not related to magic. Thank you so much for everyone. Everyone has been so helpful.
Oh, absolutely. So for background, you and I met in Blackpool at the Ruskin just last year. So as of this recording, so this would have been actually this year. So it would have been February, a few months ago. Now that I'm thinking about it. And just for the people listening to this at home and watching this on YouTube, I walk into the Ruskin and I get my pint of royal bitter and I go into the back big room and John Allen comes running up to me and goes, "You have to see this," and leads me over to you. And I go, okay. Whenever John says I need to see something, I always listen to it because John's got a pretty good eye for magic. And I sit down and I have since gone back and watched video of this, but you proceeded to do miracles with modeling plasticine and clay. And the video, I'm sure we should post this of this sometime, but I'm just standing there slack-jawed watching you because this clay is moving all by itself. How did you start creating miracles with plasticine and modeling clay?
Okay, so the story goes back a long time from before I was a magician. So first, how I got into doing stuff with plasticine. Plasticine is the word for clay. In Peru, we call it plastilina. So when I was 5 years old, I was, and I do remember this because I love plasticine so much. I went into my school and we were doing some sculptures because we were playing just skits. That was our task. And I remember the night before I saw a documentary of dragons with my mom. So I tried to make a dragon or something like that. I was just playing with it. And then the teacher, she just gave me plasticine and said, "Hey, you're doing pretty good. Here's the task. I'm going to give you some plasticines." She gave some plasticines to everyone, but I remember that she gave me the most to me. And then she said, "You bring anything that you want the day after." And so when I was little, we had some money, but our family was starting to just like place themselves as to be middle class. But we didn't have enough money for many things, and I could afford sometimes toys. And I remember that my parents were always so helpful with me giving me toys. But the best toys, the ones that could move, obviously we couldn't get them because they were like a little bit expensive. So I could just do plasticine figurines, and those were my toys. So I learned how to do them, and eventually, after learning for so long, I just would always have a piece of plasticine with my hands. Okay, so that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Then, fast forward a few years later, when I was in med school. So I was.
We should say that you are not 14 years old.
Yes.
You are 31 and a fully qualified doctor.
Almost there, almost 31. Yes, I'm a doctor. Yeah, surprise. Big revelation. The Peruvian mentalist. Anyway. And so, yes. And so I was during my last years of med school, I would just go there and just go to the children's hospital. This was we will call the internship, in which we will be basically just be working all day
Yeah.
for like scraps. But anyway, that's another story. And the kids would be always very, very sad because of their disease. So we will have a bunch of toys. But they liked the most was me just bringing up the plasticine and while you just asking, hey, what's your favorite animal? I don't know, a bird, a capybara, a dog. I would say, oh, yes, sure. The capybara is a rodent that comes from South America and blah, blah. And while I would speak about the capybara, I would just make the little parts of it. And by that time, I was already a magician. I had just barely 1 or 2 years in magic. And so I decided when I would do my first shows, my first close-up sessions, I would end up with doing the dinosaur routine. I would finish with me making a dinosaur, which is my favorite kind of animal. And that was just me sculpting and just talking about the dinosaur, which was something that was very unique to me. And then only after just having the sculpting, I decided, hey, maybe we could add some magic to it. And bit by bit, the dinosaur routine became slowly what you saw at the Ruskin, which me adding more and more stuff and me just discovering how many different things I can do with plasticine, just stemming from the fact that plasticine can be sculpted. So I created some fast sculpting routines. I created some mentalism routines with plasticine. I created some different color changes, some ways of just sticking the plasticine, just explore it as much as I could. And then after working on that dinosaur routine, I started like just working on other things that were not necessarily the dinosaur routine that work with plasticine. And this is how we end up here.
The magic is incredible because, I mean, with some of it, you are openly sculpting in front of people, and part of that is just magical in and of itself. And other times, it seems like the things sculpt themselves. Like the dinosaur routine in particular is just, when you sort of like just touch it with your finger and like the legs appear and the tail appears. It's really amazing. But even the mentalism routines, like I will never forget. You asked me to name an animal, and then you did a bunch of other magic, and then you produced this sculpted capybara.
Okay.
And I think what's incredible about it, especially like having you've taught me a lot of this. Now I don't do the magic. It's not terribly difficult.
No, it's not as hard as it seems. The impossible parts of the sculpting, like obviously the real sculpting is necessary to create impossible parts of the sculpting because you need to sculpt things beforehand. Right, in order to work with what we're going to be working later. But basically it's not counting that previous sculpting, which is also fairly easy to learn and you can do back at your home and you can do that. It's just a few slides that are very intuitive. And when you just get the gist of it, you can just do it. I remember explaining them to you.
Yeah.
Yes, when I was doing the fast sculpting, you just pulled it in just a few minutes.
Yeah, you sort of learn to make a couple of basic shapes, and then you learn how to put those shapes together in ways that make recognizable objects. And you can the sculpting can be kind of rough, and the audience can still see what the intended final piece is.
Yes.
Whether it's a face or an animal or you're making an object, you don't have to be Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Like you're not sculpting with marble. It's just like a little bit here and there, and you can really convey a lot with very little in the way of like deep artistic skill. Not that you are not very skilled at sculpting. You've been doing it for a long time.
Yes, actually, that's part of the idea of sculpting for performances. So I always say this: when you have a sculptor that has sculpted their whole life, usually they use tools, they use bigger things, they have to make a lot of detail because that's what's the idea of it. Whereas in sculpting for first magic sculpting and then real sculpting, like at the end, what matters is what they're seeing as superhuman ability of sculpting, and as long as it's detailed enough for them to understand what's going on, they can recognize, wait, that's the head of a horse, right? And in order to have the head of a horse, you don't need the horse to have like the most like eyes and teeth and everything. Of course you can do it, but you just need to just pass the finger and they will see the head of a horse, and that's impossible moment. It just needs to have 2 ears, the overall shape of the head, and maybe the mane, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the mane is what sells it, because like you do the mane, well, it's so detailed, because it's just under 1 second, and that's the impression that you're giving.
Yeah, it's figuring out the detail to show them that makes it magical in and of itself, rather than like getting it super detailed, which I think is the real secret that you're imparting in this project that you just filmed with us. And like learning these techniques are really interesting, but I also like that you're combining it with sort of traditional like mentalism or different like magic things, so that you've got some switches which would come like more from like the sponge ball or coin world, but they can do some really fascinating stuff.
Yes. At the end, well, magic is very well connected to itself. Sometimes we have effects that can be a little bit disconnected in terms of like, oh yes, I don't need to, I can just learn this effect in particular, and it wouldn't necessarily connect to other things. But most of the times, especially working with small objects, you can just learning a fake take or just a switch or whatever. It does go a long way, because it can help with everything. I do remember there are some magicians, like for example Julio Merino, when he does SpongeBob stuff, he brings many techniques from coin magic into that. For example, there's one technique that was originally from coin magic from Joaquin Navajas that he does with the sponge balls, and it just works great. So it's kind of like the same. You breathe out from different branches of magic in order to also work out with this new element that you're exploring.
I guess what are you the most excited for in releasing this material? I know you've lectured on it a couple of times, but and we spoke a little bit about this. We had lunch right before this. We had a really wonderful meatloaf. But I guess, what are you excited about with introducing this to the world? Because you've kind of kept this close to the vest for a while. You've done the routines for people, but you haven't really taught how it works.
Yeah, so what happens is that until not so long ago, I felt that it wasn't that ready, and at least I feel that some magic, sometimes it's released and you're just like that, but it needs to mature. It needs to be still slow fire cooked before it's released. However, two things happened. First is that I thought to myself, if I just keep on working on this and working on this, it will never eventually be released. And second, I actually do feel that this will be helpful also to me, but also to everyone, because my final goal is, I have explored this new element, and I love sharing magic. The best thing about magic is just working and sharing it with friends, at least in my opinion. So it feels very lonely to be just the only one that's exploring plasticine magic. So hopefully people will pick this up and then go like, hey, well, I got this idea, hey Johnny, we can just talk together, and it just builds up, and it can build up really faster. And that's the plan, like for people to pick this up, learn, and then we can all together build a new unexplored branch of magic.
Yeah, no, I think that's terribly exciting. It's sort of like how, Takamisa Sui was sort of the only guy exploring Rubik's Cube magic.
Yeah.
And he came up with some really interesting things, but he was, the stack he uses and the one-handed solve and the secret solving and such. And then when it came to the forefront of the public's, like the magic public's imagination, that sort of exploded. And suddenly you've got Henry Harrius and you've got just so many people exploring something that was largely, it was like Takamisa Sui, and then it was like Karl Hein and John George were doing Rubik's Cube magic, but kind of by themselves. And as soon as it exploded, there was so much more. And I'm really excited to see if that happens with plasticine.
Yeah.
And what other people could come up with.
Yes. Please contact me if you see anything plasticity related. Let's hang out and jam.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the plan.
You do magic outside of you don't just do plasticine magic. You've got some fun work with coins and cards and things like that. Growing up in Peru, what were some of your early influences in magic?
Ooh, okay, so here we go. So when I first began my magic journey, I didn't think there would be many magicians in Peru. Of course, there aren't as many magicians in Peru as, let's say, in the US, for example, or in Spain. Mainly because you wouldn't just hear much about them like on the internet or like on web pages or such. You just go to the internet, you just see like an English magician or an American magician selling a product, and oh, these are the famous guys. So I didn't know there was a thriving magic community. And then I met some people that introduced me to other people. One of the first one was Jorge Lam. I appreciate him a lot. He was an amazing magician who became a family friend, and he's an amazing cook. The best tallarín saltado I've ever had in my life is from Jorge Lam. I always say this. And their family is so nice. But they were magicians. Jorge Lam was a Latin American FISM champion back, let's say, 40 years ago. So he's also very knowledgeable, and he is the mentor of many other magicians. He introduced me to some others, and I would say that my first true friend/mentor was Antonio Kamimoto, who right now, he's a Peruvian magician. Here he's right now a little bit disconnected from magic because he has now a son, and he's a karate instructor, champion as well. Like, he's amazing. But he introduced me to the pleasure of reading theory books, of reading and understanding the construction for magic, and actually thinking about magic more than just like, hey, this is a cool trick, I'm going to come up with my variation because it's cool. No, it's more about like thinking, hey, what actually suits this better? Maybe I like this technique a little bit more, but maybe this works a little bit better. Let's explore everything until we reach a consensus. So Kamimoto was that. He introduced me to the magic of Ascanio. And well, Ascanio for Spanish-speaking magicians is great. It's amazing. You learn the theory, and even if you don't necessarily think about the theory all the time, you can literally identify any magician and say, wait, this theory that Ascanio is using, because the framework of Ascanio, he didn't build it on himself. He built it on Dave Vernon. He built it on like Michael Amar, Fred Capps, and many others. Okay, Kamimoto. Then, after Kamimoto, I would say another one of my friend mentors is Hernan Macaño. Hernan Macaño from Argentina. Great, goated guy. Hola, Hernan. Let's hope he watches this. Hey, Hernan! Te quiero mucho. So, I like everything I would show him, he would touch and convert into gold. I would show him like a card routine. Hey, maybe we should change this. And also, he thinks very deeply of magic. He just like, it's the kind of people that you would just talk to, and he would just talk, and it will give some gold nuggets here, and then you just take it and learn. So more than just learning just tricks, because he has amazing tricks too. His mind is really crazy. He comes up with so many different things, but I feel that it's more about how to be a magician. Yes. And then I have two more.
Yeah. No, go for it.
Two, yes. One of them is my good friend Corey. So Corey, hola Corey. He's a Peruvian magician. He works a lot on just having one trick for maybe 10-15 minutes and having the audience just like be so involved with it, just by talking, just by moving. And he continuously helps me, even though like we are not so far apart in age. He just helps me a lot. He has so much performance experience, and he is one of the people that just performs all the time. He just goes out there. He's a Peruvian magician. He just goes out there and just performs. Even like, let's go, I'm not working here. Okay, I have some free time. Let's go to this open mic. Let's help working as an MC for this group of magicians that are doing this. But he just goes out there and performs and tries new stuff and learns. And also it's very helpful. He helped me a lot with the script of some of my routines. Very helpful. And last but not least, my good friend. Well, I don't know if I can consider him a mentor, more like a jamming partner, which I learn a lot and I respect a lot. His name is Smifer. Smifer. Let's hope he doesn't understand. No, he will translate this to Spanish. He will translate this to Spanish. Smifer. Gostoso. Anyway, so Smifer, he's a Colombian magician, and he's one of the most creative guys that I know. And thanks to him, I've learned so many different things because he always come up with new things, new ideas. And what I learned from Smifer the most is just debating and just having like one position and saying, hey, I don't think this works well. Well, I don't think what you're saying works well. And we just go on debates and say yes, and eventually just learn and come up with ideas. Now because I'm now in Bristol, we don't hang around that often. We used to hang around in Zoom a lot. Yes, but whenever we show up, like he just goes and shows me like 10 different new ideas that are great. Okay, that's the end of the.
Peru has such a rich culture and in food and art and archaeology and how much of your culture do you find you bring to your magic growing up in Peru and
Yes.
and it's just because I'm just fascinated by how rich and ancient the culture is. And because we had a wide-ranging conversation at lunch about different foods and stuff like that, and I'm curious as to how you're bringing some of that into your work.
Well, this is very interesting as well to talk about because Peru is a big country and has so many different cultures that I come from the capital, from Lima, that I feel sometimes that if I were to talk about stuff that I actually haven't experienced that much, it feels like a little bit like stolen valor. So yes, okay, maybe I can talk about how some of my family comes from the highlands of Peru. The Sierra comes from a place called Cajamarca, and it has roots in, for example, the Incan Empire. The Inca, which was the governor of the Incan Empire, he would go and take baths in this. Imagine like the Roman baths, like this was like the place, like Los Baños del Inca and such. And yes, but I feel that most of my identity comes from just being a city boy from the capital city of Peru.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to overstep into something that some of my other Peruvian friends are doing. I have one friend whose name is Aceituno, not Alfonso Aceituno. There's another. It's a great magician I haven't met yet. Hopefully, I will meet in the future. His name is Aceituno, just Aceituno. He's from Cusco, the capital of the Incas.
Yes.
He knows Quechua. He studies shamanistic rituals to work in his magic. So he works with the coca leaves. He has some tricks with that, and that's great. And he is the guy that should be working on that. I can talk about it. I can just do something like a bit, but at least for me, I would say that most of my experience comes from Lima, and the only thing that I would bring over there would be like my life story, being a guy from Lima, from Peru. I have some mutual experiences, but they are not as mystic or as.
I guess I don't mean the mystical elements, because obviously it's Peru is such a wide-ranging country, and I was just very curious because of how it works for you, because I really like the idea that you're not wanting to take elements and experiences that you don't have, but the wonderful rich food and the archaeology of like you were mentioning at lunch, how like Lima is about to put its second metro line in because you guys the government keeps digging up to make lines and then keep finding different archaeological things. And I know you're interested in archaeology, and so I was just I'm so fascinated by the input of your background in this beautiful city and how it affects your magic.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I get what you're saying now. I get what you're saying. Yes. Okay. As Tamaris has said, the magician must have a rich interior world, the one of the seven veils of mysteries. I don't necessarily have to do a trick saying like this a trick about the archaeological huacas in Lima or in Peru, or what I know about the Incan culture or whatever. However, I every so often do slip in some elements in my scripts that are not necessarily how can you say it, part of the narrative of one trick, but rather than the narrative of me. Yes, doing because um when I have a long performance and I want people to not necessarily just remember the tricks, but rather remember about me, something that's unique. So, like the experience of me not being replaced by someone else. I can talk about my personal experience, what I know. So, for example, if I'm talking about, let's say, my experience in the hospital of Peru, I could say how, like, historically, some like the Hospital Loaiza has been for a bunch of hundreds of years, and it's like one of the historical hospitals where I used to work at, and blah 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 blah. Yes, I do like to slip some stuff in onto my scripts with that, or like just talking about the wakas. The wakas, I do talk about the wakas every so often when I just happen to be doing long performances.
Could you tell our audience at home a little bit about the wakas and
Yes,
how
yes.
you incorporate it into your
Okay.
magic?
Yeah, sure. So imagine like pyramids. So waka is Lima is filled with wakas. I used to live very close to a waka in a district called San Miguel. Um, and the wakas are old ceremonial centers that some of them were pre-Incas, so a few thousand years old before the Incas, very old. Actually, we do have the oldest settlement city in the whole of America, America meaning North America, South America, Central America, of the whole of America, the continent, which is Caral, which I am not exactly sure about its age, but I would assume it's like 10,000 years or something like hell old.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's in the coast of Peru. So rather than just yeah, and so we have so many, and sometimes we would have the city and we would have like a waka or like a restaurant in a waka, like a gourmet restaurant, and the waka will be next to it, or like sometimes we will be driving and we have the zoo, and the zoo is a waka is literally inside of the zoo because the zoo had to be built. We have the zoo of Lima, which is massive. There's a waka inside of the zoo because obviously they couldn't destroy the waka, this historical site. Yes. So when I would talk about the wakas, or like the history of Peru rather than just talking about the waka, because the waka is just one part of the history of Peru. I like to talk about the history of colonial Lima. I like to talk about the history of like, well, sometimes I don't talk about the corruption of Peru, yes, but like after the shows, I talk a little bit about my country, yes, but I just add little tidbits of history whenever I can when I try to talk about my country, because my presentation, I always present myself, hey, nice to meet you, I'm Johnny Clavo from Peru. And this works great in countries other than Peru because I go like, I'm Johnny Clavo from Peru. Oh, well, nice to meet you again. My name is Josimar from Peru as well. Like, doesn't work that way. And whenever I like add some tricks, and I go like, yes, please make sure that there's no pesky Peruvians in between the cars. Maybe something like this, like Paddington Bear. It works great in the UK. Paddington Bear comes from the Peru. Paddington Bear is a spectacle bear. And also Antiochos, we have them in the cloud forts of Peru. And you know, like a small break just to talk a little bit about my country, and also for them to remember at the end. People do remember that, those little fun facts about me talking about the biology, me talking about a little bit of history. It's just small tidbits. It's like literally just a sentence or half a sentence. Just, oh, Paddington Bear, a spectacle bird from Peru, and that's it.
Well, I thank you for the conversation, and thank you for introducing the world to this beautiful plasticine magic, and I can't wait to see where we go from there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very thankful to all of you. Yes. And everybody out there, and message me talking about plasticine, anything.
Take care.
That's going to do it for this week, kids. Thanks so much to Johnny for being on the show, and thanks to you for listening. There's video floating around of me in the Ruskin just sitting with my mouth hanging open as I watch Johnny do his miracles. It's pretty amazing stuff, and I can't wait for you to see it. Thanks to everyone who I saw at Magic Live. Next week, I'll try and recap some of the amazing things I saw while I was there. It was an incredible one. That's why my voice still sounds like this. And I'll be starting to get some interviews with my new coworkers here in Chicago. Thanks to all the well-wishers. I have landed here in Chicago. I'm still unpacking, as you can tell, safely. I'm here, and we're doing some pretty amazing things in the mansion that I can't wait to tell you about. As always, we're a weekly podcast, so be sure to like and subscribe, as well as share your favorite episodes on the social media platform you're considering putting the moving company on blast for shattering all of your dishes and breaking one of your pinball machines. Moving sucks, guys. I love my new place, love my new job, but moving sucks out loud. But if yelling at movers isn't your cup of tea, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Erik Tait. That's at ERIKTAIT. From me and everyone else here at the P3 Magic Studios, practice, practice, perform.